Hey guys, it's Jessica from Peace Love Books, and today I'm here with some historical romances for beginners. So these are books that I think if you're new to the genre and want to try it out, these are some really good recommendations. Now, I chose a lot that I love and that I feel like are pretty easy to get into and have some really great tropes that contemporary romances use a lot. So I will go ahead and get to, I think I have 11. So I'm just going to jump right in. Before I jump right in, I do have a video of historical romances for beginners that I posted a year ago, and since I've been obsessed with historical romances again, a lot of people have been asking where to start, and I direct them to that video. But I did that video a whole entire year ago, so I've read a lot more since then. So I have that video if you want to check it out, but then I also have these 10 I think are great places to start. Okay, so the first two I'm going to start with are actually 2021 releases by some of my favorite authors. And so the first one is kind of like lessons in seduction. So the heroine wants a guy to teach her how to like get a man. And so that is The Lady Gets Lucky by Joanna Shupe. I think this one was just so adorable, and just like I was grinning the whole time I was reading this. So our heroine needs someone to teach her how to seduce a man because she wants to get a good husband, and so she approaches our hero, Kit. Yes, she approaches our hero because he is known to be a ladies' man. They're at this house party, and so in historical time period, they would oftentimes go to houses. I have a couple like this actually, where they would stay for the house for like weeks on end because there's a big party, and so they would at least a week they would spend at this house just like socializing and going to balls at night. And so that's what happens in here. So she's staying with her mother. Her mother is awful, but Kit is known for like hooking up with some of the chaperones while there, and so he is a ladies' man, like undoubtedly a ladies' man. And so she approaches him and asks him for help, and he's like no, but then he realizes she is really close with the chef at this very famous restaurant that Kit wants to use for his new supper club, dinner club. I forget the word they use for it. I think it's a supper club that he wants to open, and so he makes a deal that she gets him some of the recipes from him and like the chef, and he'll help her. And so she says yes, and she's actually a really talented chef herself, and I love that about this book, and the fact that they start falling for each other, but it's social class difference, so they can't be together. I love that trope in historical romances. So oftentimes if it's a lady or a man in high social standing, they should not marry below their social class. Kit's a low social class, lower, and she is a lady, and so they can't be together, but they really want to, and it's just so cute. I love how much he liked her, and it's just their romance was just so wholesome and adorable. And of course we have those lessons in seduction as well, which are great, so I would definitely recommend picking this up. We have another social class difference romance, but that is The Duchess Hunt by Lorraine Heath. Lorraine Heath is easily one of my favorite historical romance authors. I have another book of hers actually on this list, and this one is one of my also favorite tropes where one character has to help the other find someone to get married to. And so our hero's a duke and he needs a duchess, and so his assistant has been working with him for quite a few years, and they both are pining after each other. This has mutual pining, which I love, but neither one of them has like done anything about it or said anything about it. And so he writes an advertisement in the paper, and she has been getting these letters from these women to basically apply to be his duchess, and she has to go through them and decide like who should it be, and attend balls with him to see these women in real life to see who is good enough to marry him. And along that journey they're growing closer. He realizes like her living conditions and like wants her closer to him, and it's just so cute. The mutual pining is amazing in here, and she's lower social class, so she's like, I could never marry him. And so I really love this, and I feel like if you're new to historical romances you might like different social class because they make it clear like societally what's acceptable with who can be with who, and it's just amazing. And he's a duke, and we all love duke romances. If you're someone who likes angst, which hello, I love angst. I love when people aren't allowed to be together, which is why I love the different social class romances. The next one's by another really famous historical romance author, and that is My American Dutchess by Eloisa James. I think this is actually not the first book in the series, but you can definitely read it as a standalone. I don't even know if this is in a series or not, but this one, our hero is a duke, and he is at a ball, and he sees this woman, and he talks to her, and is instantly like, that's just who I want to marry. Like, she is amazing. That is our heroine, who is an American heiress. And so a lot of people in historical romances as well, if they are not a first son, they don't have a title, and if they don't manage their money well, they need to marry into money. And so our heroine is being chased after by a lot of men because she has a lot of money, and she's from America, and she has, like I said, been engaged 3 times. She's broken them off, so she's like, this this last time is it. I cannot be known as the girl who breaks off engagements. I need to get married now. And so little does our hero know, his brother, who is the second son, who is broke, proposed to her earlier that night, and they're engaged. So he meets just this amazing woman that he is so into because she's American, so she doesn't really follow English society standards. She doesn't even know like what kind of rules to follow, so it's really funny in that aspect. So they explain a lot in here, so that's why I think it's a great beginning romance for historical romance readers, because like she's kind of learning the ropes too, so you get that along with her. But then he realizes his brother is engaged to the woman that he thinks is like perfect for him. So there's more pining in here, and she is like, well, I kind of like the brother, but I'm already engaged and I said I would never break off another engagement again. And she realizes how much she's liking the brother more than the guy she's engaged to. There's an adorable puppy in here. I just love angsty, forbidden, off-limits romances, so try this one out. The next one I know for sure I included in that previous video, but I think this might be one of the only ones I included in my previous video last year, and that is Romancing the Duke by Tessa Dare. I feel like Tessa Dare is one of the most perfect authors to start out with when it comes to historical romances. I'm very sad she hasn't released a book in over a year. I don't know what is happening with The Bride Bet. That's supposed to be coming out, but it hasn't yet. But this one is the first in her Castles Ever After series, and we have a scarred, brooding hero. He is blind, and I think he's scarred. He might not actually be scarred, I don't remember, but he is blind, living in this like really crumbling down castle, and he is just angry at the world. She gets a notice that she has inherited this castle, and he is like, I live here, what are you talking about? She won't leave, he won't leave, so they have to live together. And it's really funny just how just like gross this castle has become, because like nothing has been taken care of, and she is like, I'm determined to stay here, even though it's kind of like terrifying to her. And she is actually the daughter of a very famous author who passed away, and so we have like cosplay in here, like people who are obsessed with her father's books come and visit, and it's so funny and just so adorable. Again, this is one that's a really cute romance, and he has some things he's dealing with in his past that led to him being blind that he's really brooding and grumpy over. It was so easy to read. I flew through it. Tessa Dare can do no wrong. The next one I have is one of the only older historical romances on this list. This one came out in 1993, and it's just so good. This one's the one that's also at a house party, and that is Then Came You. And so it's more at a house party because they're off limits as well. So this one, our heroine does not adhere to society standards. She's similar to the heroine in My American Dutchess, though she is British. She does not care what people think about her, and she just goes against whatever society says. And so the beginning is her jumping off of a riverboat into the Thames to grab her hat, and the hero sees her and he's like, that is so embarrassing and I'm so appalled, and she is just so annoying. Like, he cannot stand our heroine. He's actually supposed to marry her sister. So I don't think he's actually proposed yet, but he is in the like process of courting the sister, and ends up going to their house and staying for a long period of time at their house in order to court the sister. And they fall in love in the process. And this one has like kind of a grumpy but such a sweet hero, and he gets angry when he falls for her, and it's just so good. I really love this. This isn't your typical like really domineering alpha hero that we get in the 90s historical romances. He is just so good, and I think that this is a great one if you're really interested in getting into especially older historical romances. Then I have another one by Tessa Dare that is literally just like, I laughed out loud, like rom-com to the max. This is A Week to Be Wicked, and in this one it is a traveling romance, and our heroine loves fossils and she really wants to go to this convention in Scotland, and the hero, I believe, was like supposed to marry her sister, but she doesn't want him to ruin her sister, and so she's like, you're gonna need to marry me instead. And then she's like, and I need you to escort me to Scotland so I can go to this like convention, and he is like, no. And so but then he shows up and kind of gets roped into going, but he is horrified and petrified of carriage, like being in a coach, because his parents died in an accident in one of them, so they can't take a coach. And so it's really fun them trying to get to this place, and they have to lie to people about their relationship, and just like, I literally laughed out loud multiple times in this book. They get attacked by highwaymen, and they are just trying to make it to this place and falling for each other along the way. So if you really like traveling forced proximity romances, I would definitely recommend this one. Then if you like more serious angsty historicals, I would recommend My Darling Duke by Stacey Reid. I love Stacey Reid. This is the first book in the series. The third book comes out in December. Books 1 and 2 are really great, but I really liked book 1 more. Our heroine really needs to have a good husband for her sister, and so her sister is on the marriage market, and she's like, I need someone to give us attention so my sister can get a good match. And so she decides to announce that she's engaged to this this recluse duke who has not been seen in years, and he actually was in a very bad accident, and so he's confined mostly to a wheelchair, and he is scarred all over his body, and he hates society. He will not come out into society. And so she announces she's engaged to him, and his solicitors are like, okay, if you're his fiance, like, here's his money and like here's everything. The Duke hears about it and he's like, who is this woman I've literally never met saying that we are engaged? So he comes into society and attends a ball and meets her, and they strike up a deal that if she spends time with him at his estate out in the country, I don't remember if it's Scotland or not, they might go to Scotland, I don't remember where it was, but she has to go to his estate and spend time with him. He'll agree to this plan until her sister can find someone, and it is so good. I love a good scarred hero. I believe this is supposed to be kind of Beauty and the Beast retelling, and it's just amazing, and I love it when a heroine will do whatever she can for her family. I really like this, and I would really recommend Stacey Reid's romances. Then you've probably heard of the Bridgerton series by Julia Quinn, but I want to recommend Just Like Heaven. So if you've read Bridgerton, you probably know the Smythe Smiths, and I love the series. It is a Smythe Smith series, so they're the family that puts on those like awful performances every year that the Bridgertons talk about. So in this one, it is a brother's best friend romance. Her brother was actually in a duel, and so the brother's best friend ends up promising to protect her because he's banished because of the duel, because he severely injured the man he was in a duel with. Typically when they duel, they're supposed to like misfire, so they miss each other. No one actually ends up getting killed, but he actually accidentally hit him and gave him a limp for life, and so both the brother and his friend that he was in a duel with end up having books. But when the brother is banished, he asks his best friend to look after his sister, and so he does. They've grown up together. He's known her his whole life, and it's so sweet watching them fall for each other. And then of course it's like, well, do you really like me for me? Are you only paying attention to me because you're my brother's best friend? You're supposed to watch over me. I feel like this is a really common trope in contemporary romances, the like watch over her for me as the brother's best friend. And there's even a caretaking scene in here because one of them twists their ankle and they have to like care for each other, and they're breaking society's rules by being alone in a room together, caretaking for one another, and it's just really, really cute. And I love this series. I would recommend all the books in the series, though I haven't read the last one because I heard it's awful, but books 1 through 3 in the series are amazing. Then if you really love the found family trope, I would recommend The Duke Heist by Erica Ridley. This one's a lot of fun because our heroine was adopted with a bunch of misfits, and they all have different strengths or like strong suits and skills. She is great at stealing things. She has a sister who is great at disguises, who is so funny. Someone's good at voices. We have someone who's obsessed with animals, and so they all have their little like tricks and trades, and they all were brought up by this man who's passed away, and so they have realized his like beloved painting was replaced with a fake and someone else has it, and they figured out it's at this duke's house, I believe, or the duke has this. I forget why he has it, but he has this, and so she decides to go and try to steal the painting and ends up stealing the duke on accident instead. And so it's their romance, and it's so sweet. I do think like the found family aspect kind of overshadows the romance, which is what a lot of people complain about when they read this book, but I absolutely love this book. I really love the whole found family aspect, especially on the hero's part, because he doesn't really have a family and finds just comfort in them while falling in love with our heroine, and it's just so sweet. If you want like less of a super strong romance and a historical romance, pick this one up. And the second book is sapphic, and I'm so excited to pick it up soon, but this one is just, oh, and he's betrothed to someone already though. It has a little bit of a forbidden element too, and I loved it. Okay, I have 2 more. So the next one is Beverly Jenkins. I have to recommend Beverly Jenkins, and in this one I recommend Forbidden as like a very light historical romance that if you like more historical fiction, I think you would really like this, because our heroine is trying to travel somewhere to be a chef. I think she's making her way to California, and she gets like attacked and stranded in the desert, and so then we have our hero rescues her, and she gets a job as a cook at this place so she can raise money in order to be able to go all the way to California, and falls for our hero in the process. But our hero is pretty prominent in town, and he is white passing. She is black, and so if he wants to be with her, he really has to give up a lot of power he has in town in order to make a difference, and he doesn't know what to do about love or his duty. And it was a really sweet romance. Definitely not as heavy on the romance. A lot of Beverly Jenkins, the first half is pretty romance heavy, and then the second half is a lot more plot driven. So that's why I think if you like more historical based fiction than historical romances, I think you should definitely try this one out. And this one's supposed to be a movie. I think COVID stopped that production, but I think they're still trying to make this one into a movie, and I really like it. And the last one is my last one by Lorraine Heath. It's Amnesia romance. My friend Lisa from Remarkably Lisa compares this to Sharpay in High School Musical, and that is Once More My Darling Rogue. This one's Amnesia, so our hero and our heroine don't get along. She really does not like him because he's a self-made man, and self-made men don't get the same respect as people who come from wealthy families and generational wealth, and so she constantly like tells him he's not good enough, and she's so spoiled, loves shopping, and so she's like basically Sharpay. Something happens to her. Our hero, who is that man, who's a self-made man, finds her like knocked out by the Thames, and so she is like freezing and she has no memory whatsoever, and so he tells her that she is his maid, and he brings her home and says, all right, go to work. And so she ends up working as his maid, and she's like, I'm confused. She like has these feelings of like when she goes shopping, she's like, but I spend money. Like she knows she spends money, but she's like, but I'm a maid. So like, how does this work? And so she does what she's supposed to do, and he is like kind of getting a laugh out of it, but then they're falling for each other, and he's like, oh shoot, like how do I tell her? Do I tell her? How is this gonna work out? And it is so good. And they're also trying to figure out like why she was knocked out by the Thames, like who was trying to kill her, and it's so good. I love a good amnesia romance. I love a good revenge, hate to love romance. So I would definitely recommend reading this one. And those are some historical romances for beginners. I hope you enjoyed this. Let me know if you have any other historical romance videos you would like me to do. If you've read any historical romances already, I would love to hear what you've read and enjoyed. And that's all I have. As always, thank you so much for watching and have a good day. Bye.